Well, here we are, the final part of what I'd call the best Avatar content I've covered since the show ended. Can they stick the landing? Will they completely blow it? Will there be another ridiculous addition to the universe by the end of it? Will Toph's students somehow worm their way back into the story? Let's find out. So despite the intrigue we ended the last comic with, that being everyone's lives had nearly ended and are in the process of rapidly ending anyway, we start back up with the metal bending school and with Toph's students. Woo! Seems like they've taken up teaching positions and all of their experience and expertise in metal bending. Alright, it makes sense a little bit at least. Sokka came here presumably to get the only other 3 Metalbenders there are to help dig everybody out of the mine. But we know for a fact that the Metalbending Academy is near Yu Dao, and we know for another fact the island that they're on is at least a pretty good distance away, enough for Aang to call it an adventure, meaning that Sokka has to fly there and back all in the time Toph is holding up the entire mine and just pray that she can hold out. I know they don't got a lot of options, I'm just saying this one seems particularly like a long shot. Like, couldn't Aang over here, who can summon the Avatar state seemingly at will at this point, just pull some really impressive earthbending move, completely upend the whole mine? Even if he can't metal bend, if he moves enough earth, the metal will also naturally move along with it. And I mean, we've seen Aang pull stuff like this in the comics. I guess they're thinking it's just probably too dangerous. So we rejoin Toph in the most impromptu endurance exercise ever. Satoru gives her some water, and for some reason Toph thinks this is a good time to have a chat. So Satoru, of course, goes into his tragic past. Satoru explains that both of his parents are Ozai supporters and joined some underground ring of Ozai sympathizers after the war. What, you didn't realize that Satoru was Fire Nation? Come on, he's wearing a little bit of red. That's kind of how the show does that. Keep up. So Satoru bounced and begged on the streets of Ba Sing Se for a bit before his uncle found him and gave him a job. A job Satoru now realizes was only given to him because all his uncle cares about is money. Why would he? Oh, because Satoru's the greatest engineer that the Avatar world has ever seen. No, yeah, that makes sense. Lau interjects, thinking this is just the time where he can square up with his daughter and tell him that he's sorry and that he loves her. He explains that after Toph left, he and Toph's mom broke up and he had to start all over. And all I can think of is Toph probably being like, can you not blow me up emotionally right now? You're trying to make sure you say everything if these are our last moments, but goddamn, let me focus up here and maybe they won't be. But that's the difference between me and Toph, I guess, because now we get this awesome page of Toph gassing herself up, maybe the hardest ever, saying that if you really knew the real Toph, you wouldn't be worrying about these being your last moments, because I can hold this thing up as long as I need to. I'm the greatest earthbender that ever did it. I'm Toph Beifong, baby! Oh well, a short little convo and Toph's students are suddenly here. I'm just saying, the comic makes it seem like this was a matter of minutes, but from what I can tell, that would have been a pretty long round trip for Appa. Kitaro yells through the ground that Toph students know an exercise that should solve this problem, called Spider Ants Beneath Stomping Feet. They just need to flip the exercise upside down in their head. Lucky, but the Dark One seems unimpressed with that idea because, oh man, it turns out they all suck at that one. Well, worth a shot, they figure. The alternative is they let a bunch of people get crushed, so here we go. They start ripping iron out of the ground and uncover a giant iron mask. Oh, that ain't good. But they're ripping metal and earth out of the ground and digging, and I just keep thinking, how loud can Kitaro yell? Hotun, the big guy, starts thinking, man, maybe we're not up to this, but he hears the air acolytes talking about how cool he and the other students are. And oh, suddenly he's taking up a leadership position. He's even telling Aang what to do. Well, mission accomplished, and there's my answer. Kitaro can yell loud enough to pierce like 15 feet of ground and iron with her voice. Toph's like, acceptable work, students, not so bad. Weird that I'm still conscious, huh? Oh, there it goes. Aang and Kitaro kiss, and even Sokka's like, nah, yeah, alright. So yeah, basically I held up this entire mine and saved 10 people's lives, and my father apologized to me for everything, and then we got out, and then everybody clapped. They're really leaning into this the Dark One is a poet thing now, and I don't know if jumping from one caricature to another is really much of an arc. At least Hotun got a moment there where he took a bit of a leadership position, which is cool since he was classically the most meek of the students. But the Dark One just reciting bad poetry doesn't really make him more of a character than when he just said doom all the time. So Toph's pretty jacked up here. I guess holding up the weight of the world takes a toll no matter how good your mindset is during it. Lau introduces himself to Toph's students as her father, which of course he has denied being up to this point, but the students don't know the significance of that, so they're just like, oh, weird. Seems like the near-death experience put things into perspective for Nutha, too, who thanks Kitaro for the help, even though it was mostly Toph and her students. I guess it's good that Toph is Kitaro's friend and was therefore present to save everyone's lives. Kitaro's like, don't even trip, it's light work. Loban sees all the iron the Metalbenders just tore to the ground and says, wow, this was gonna take months to get all this out. Oh no, he's gonna try to employ the Metalbenders for his own selfish goals, you would think, but no, actually. He says he will take all of this iron back to the Fire Nation and refine it there, so Lau will have no claim on the profits, and that his partnership with the Earth Kingdom is over. Am I missing something here? Isn't this guy supposed to be an evil businessman? Like, yes, he's doing evil business and being a dick, but he just saw all this profit manifest right in front of him, and he's not gonna try and take advantage of the Metalbenders that made it happen over the course of like 10 minutes? This makes him seem like an idiot. Oh, also, he name drops Vachir here, so yeah, there it is. He's Vachir, alright. Also, Vachir gets his finger bandaged up in this panel, and then one panel later it is no longer bandaged. Weird choice. Suddenly it seems like there's a storm rolling in, and Aang's got a bad feeling about about this. Yang Chen shows up in ghost mode and says, ah, and Aang's like, oh, not again. Aang's like, alright, fire up the ceremonial meal again. I need a link to Yang Chen, but the earthquake jacked up all the knickknacks and doodads they need for the occasion. Shit, this place is about to be leveled by a giant spirit. Aang's gotta do something. He thinks back to Yang Chen saying all the avatars are linked like a chain, and breaking his connection to Roku weakened his connection to the others. So Aang sits down and makes a new medallion and says, Roku, you son of a bitch, get out here! And it's just that easy, I guess. Aang calls Roku Master Roku here multiple times, which is weird because he never called him that before, ever. Like, their speaking terms were always pretty casual, as they should be, considering they're the same guy. Aang goes to apologize for ghosting Roku for so long, but Roku's like, ah, it's alright. What I was just trying to say when you severed the connection was that you have to find balance in all things, in the world, in your past lives, and in yourself. But no, it isn't. That's not what you were saying at all. You were saying if Aang didn't do what you were telling him to do, he wasn't living up to his name as the Avatar, and that he wasn't doing his job to keep that balance that you're talking about right now. I don't know why you're trying to rewrite the first comic here, Roku. The other avatars are here too. This, of course, is a reference to the classic shot from the episode The Avatar State. Aang says, hey Kyoshi, what's up, Kuruk? How's the Ko thing going? Anyway, Yang Chen, what the hell am I supposed to do about this kaiju spirit? Yang Chen finally gets to explain that after her battle with Old Iron, she promised that this land would go back to its natural state, as a showing that humans can respect and preserve their land the same way that they can respect and preserve their relationship with the spirits. And to sweeten the deal, she even made a kick-ass statue of Lady Tienhai for him. Yang Chen made her festival so that everyone would know that this land was sacred to her people, so no one would settle there and unwittingly break her promise out from beneath her. But the air nomad culture has been lost on the world, the promise has been broken, and seemingly Old Iron's armor being unearthed has only roused him further. So after a series of horrible, cascading, unknowing events, it's really looking like General Old Iron versus the Avatar Round 2 was inbound. The thing is here though, I keep waiting for Yang Chen to get to the part where she messed up. Like in the issue prior to this, she very heavily implies that she really flubbed something to do with this situation, but every time she talks about it, it seems like she's pretty much done as good as anyone could expect. She tried to stop Old Iron from attacking the city, prevented anyone from being killed, brokered a peace that honestly, after the city was destroyed anyway, probably worked for everyone, and then installed a tradition with her people that effortlessly upkept that deal for centuries. Seems like she crushed it to me. What's this mistake she's referring to? Aang rejoins the group and says, alright, fast, we gotta bury this armor and then basically destroy this town entirely and uproot everyone's lives here, or else that spirit is gonna get here and destroy this town and uproot everyone's lives here. Sokka's like, oh, wait, wasn't there a giant iron mask here a second ago? Satoru's like, I saw that bastard of an uncle of mine dragging that mask down to the docks to ship it off. Quick, hop on and we can stop him. Skirt! Katara gets to work evacuating everyone, and this weird man is crying about his cabbage restaurant. Don't know who that is, what his deal is, weird joke. But then he sees the forklift and is like, whoa, cool forklift. Really weird set of panels here. Who the hell is this guy? Loban is trying to get that big iron mask on a ship, but Sokka says, no. Satoru says, uncle, you are mean and greedy, and Loban says, nephew, you are unintelligent and not greedy enough. Then we get this badass picture of the Rough Rhino squaring up against Sokka with lightning cracking in the background. What the hell? Sokka doesn't usually get this treatment. I'm way into this. I really like these panels too. They're really simple, just shots of the empty town, Aang very calmly asking if everyone's out of the buildings, and Katara very calmly saying that they are, before Aang turns to the approaching spirit. You can feel a lot of weight with how quiet these panels feel, and how calm Aang is. He feels like the Avatar, like he's experienced and confident, which is a state we've never really got to see Aang in the show. He was always second-guessing himself and nervous when it came to the big thing, but these panels portray a heavy knowledge of his role in realizing what needs to be done. Even on this next page, Aang sort of laments that he has to destroy this place or fight this spirit, but it has this vibe of a very mature acceptance on Aang's part of his responsibilities. Aang enters the Avatar state in his force of nature sphere and takes off to go destroy the town, and with all the complaining I did last video about not liking that this ball of elements is being used so much, I think the last pages were so good I don't even mind so much somehow. It seems word has gotten out that Aang is going to level the city himself because it's just come down to it, starting with the refinery, and clearly the residents of the town and Toph's dad aren't on board with that, considering from their perspective they don't know that the spirit is inbound right now. They just think Aang is gonna blow their shit up for no reason. At the same time, I have a hard time believing Aang would come to the conclusion that destroying these people's homes to appease a spirit would be the answer to this problem. It just doesn't feel very Aang at all. I know this is tied in with his culture as well, and this land is sacred, but uprooting people from land they've made lives on, even if it is unknowingly or even knowingly disrespectful to his culture, according to the show, isn't a move I think Aang would be cool with. It's to uphold a promise that a past life made centuries upon centuries ago that was broken unknowingly. These people shouldn't be punished for that, but this also calls back to his talks with Roku, and Roku didn't have a good answer for him in the promise. Nothing Roku said to him helped him. In this comic, Yang Chen laid out how she handled the problem and told Aang that he's in basically an identical situation. But her knowledge for Aang this time was that the past lives are supposed to put a lens on current current situations through their own triumphs and failures. Yang Chen handled this situation one way, and it worked, but for reasons, it didn't work forever. Is Aang just going to do the same thing, agree to the same deal? Is destroying the town the right thing to do, or is Aang going to be his own avatar? This is where these comics shine, asking really, really big, nuanced, hard to answer questions, and watching our characters grow to answer them. Alright, where were we? Toph wakes up and her dad, after being yelled at for trying to coddle her again for a moment, tells Toph Aang is going to destroy the refinery, and Toph's like, what the fuck? Alao says basically if that refinery goes up in flames, you might as well throw me on top of it, I'd be ruined. The idea for the refinery was a joint operation between Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom. It's a symbol of peace. It means a lot. So Lao bows his head and says, please Toph, the greatest earthbender of all time, I need your help. Announcing that he sees Toph for who she is and accepts her. Toph finally gets the recognition of who she actually is from her father. So she says, yeah, I could probably help you out. It's already going down though. Aang's about to annihilate the refinery and lets fly 3 enormous fireballs. But Toph and Team Beifong show up to block them, and Toph has this crazy moment where suddenly Aang is the bad guy, and he kinda is from a certain perspective. Sure, Toph and the townspeople don't have the whole story at the moment, but still, what Aang is trying to do here is pretty messed up. Cut back to Sokka versus Kachi and Vachir. Sokka thinks to make this 2v1 into a 2v2, so he gives Satoru his club. But Satoru isn't any good at fighting, but Sokka says he beats up people that are stronger than him all the time. Watch this. He disarms Vachir and hits him with a judo flip. Oh shit, says Satoru. So he hits the engine of the forklift with his club, and some metal bits shoot out of it, and very likely horribly maim/kill Kachi. Satoru says it's unfortunate that I don't have an engine big enough to hit with a club that could maim this guy though. So Old Iron has made land, and Loban is over here still trying to get his payday, hauling that mask away, and that doesn't last long. Loban refuses to let go of his golden goose, aka a hunk of iron, and humans are so below Old Iron, I suppose, he doesn't even care to swat them away before he puts the mask on. I guess we needed another Scooby-Doo moment for the third part, so all 3 of them are now suddenly dangling from Old Iron's face. Cut back to Aang, he's trying to explain, but we reignite the argument of the entire book. Toph says she won't let Aang tear down what these people worked on, tear down the future, and Aang is arguing a bit of a different point this time, that he just doesn't want a giant spirit to go on a rampage, but in the end is still arguing for this place to be returned to the state it was back in his day. Aang says move. Toph says I'll take you on, Avatar, you ain't so tough. So honestly, a fight you'd never expect going into it, Aang versus Toph begins. The disagreement has finally come to blows. Aang quickly takes out Toph's students, sending them to the ground gently in little cyclones, but Toph's not pulling any punches here. She means it. She's fighting for something she believes in. Toph rejoins her pupils on the ground, and they all take to throwing giant heaps of metal at Aang. Interesting that none of these classically second-guessing themselves type characters are hesitant at all about this. Well, that is until they see this, and then they're like, oh, I mean, maybe we're actually on Aang's side here. Katara sees the 3 Stooges over here hanging from the spear's mouth and makes a fun water park attraction to get them down. Nice, good thinking. Satoru talks his uncle into letting them drop, and Loban seems to be making this into a really big thing, like Satoru really just saved his life big time there, but I don't really see that. Aang flies up to try to talk to Old Iron and introduces himself as the Avatar. Old Iron tells him to shut up, he's not here to talk about this again. So Aang, in his Force of Nature sphere, summons a gigantic rock body with his sphere as the head to literally fist fight Old Iron. Now, I don't know, I always thought that this imagery is pretty goofy. Like, I don't think this fits very well. Like, why is Aang in the elemental ball if he's not using the other elements, and he's just throwing rock mech punches just so it can look like the head? Does he think it's funny? Like, oh, everyone on the ground will get a kick out of this. I don't know, this just seems silly to me. Anyway, Toph realizes now if they don't help Aang, the town is getting destroyed anyway, so suddenly Toph is back on Team Aang. Toph and her students take to peeling off Old Iron's armor so Aang can get a meaty shot in at him, and Aang's like, whoa, if you do that, he might not be able to take it. You know, at the end of the day, I am the Avatar. I hit pretty fucking hard. And Toph's like, stop pumping your own tires and take the shot! This turns Old Iron's gaze to the Metalbenders though, and even though Aang tries to keep his attention, it's no good. So Aang hits Old Iron with a move that I'm half sure is supposed to be the same one that he's going to kill Ozai with, like the quadruple spiral attack. Like, it kinda looks like it, right? The fire and the air and earth are all wrapping around this pillar of water. This blasts a hole in Old Iron's chest, like he got him good. Aang's like, whoa, sorry, Katara's a healer, maybe she can take a look at it? But that leaves me to think, can Katara do that? Heal spirits? Really? Anyway, Old Iron getting knocked flat on his back and probably about 15% of his body mass being disintegrated really did a number on his confidence. He's really going through it over here. He feels he was right. There's no longer a place in this world for spirits. Old Iron treads back into the sea with a few words about how balance is unachievable. No matter what, the Avatar will always side with the humans. He bows to Aang with respect and says that Aang has vanquished him, which isn't what Aang was going for at all. He turns into a bunch of weird spirit lobster things and returns to the ocean. ocean. This is a very interesting conclusion to the conflict, not where you think things would go at all, right? So much of the comic has been about progress versus tradition, and Old Iron represented the side of tradition. From where I thought the story was going, I thought we were going down the same line as The Promise, where the outcome would be pretty much seen from the beginning, where everyone just chills out and comes to an agreement. But that's not what we got at all, which is a lot better, I think. Aang himself still seems very torn on the subject, but clearly what he did was correct and justified. But that also means that he just defeated the spirit that represented his way of thinking, and that doesn't feel good. He doesn't really have an ally in this fight, a fight he feels very deeply and strongly about. He and the spirit's thinking were the same. Rend this town from this island so it can be preserved, like the agreement said. But does that really make sense in this new world he's trying to build, even if it makes him feel good, or even if it feels right? It's really messy and not an easy topic, even with Old Iron thrown back into the sea. Toph rejoins Aang as he looks out to the sea and says, "Thanks for not letting that giant spirit crush us. Appreciate that." Old Iron did manage to do some serious damage to the town, it turns out, so Lau takes to rallying the troops to rebuild it. Better, stronger, even more mining of nuclear crystals. Toph even gets to joke around with her dad here, saying, "Not a bad speech, but I could give you some pointers." Seems like Lau is finally open to getting to know the real Toph, which is a nice ending for that storyline. I like that even though the big epic conflict of this story is left sort of on an unfinished, uneasy note, smaller, more personal conflicts like this can be tied up more neatly. Mostly Toph and her dad, but also seemingly Satoru and his uncle too, since he was all like, "Whoa, thank you so much," and now he's seen in this panel smiling and seemingly being nice. I don't really care so much about that, but still. Speaking of which, even these weird Southern Water Tribe girls that were only in this book to make Katara feel bad and set up a future comic also bury the hatchet. We rejoin Aang, this time at the statue of Lady Tienhai, or what's left of it. Seems like all those earthquakes probably knocked it over. This is a tough one for Aang. He has a lot of good memories with his people here, and it represents his failure with Old Iron even more. So Aang's been sitting here, thinking, maybe Old Iron was right, maybe the spirits are the past, maybe his own way of thinking is fundamentally flawed for the world he's trying to build. Like I said, Katara says, "Maybe one of your past lives has some advice," and Aang says, "Those are my past lives, this is about the future." And then Katara has a line I really like: "Past and future aren't separate, much like how all of the avatars are linked in a chain, past and future are also linked, by today and by us." Damn, Katara, well said. Where did that come from? Anyway, remember those cranefish birds I was talking about being important? Yeah, it turns out gather up 5 or 6 of those, and they're actually Lady Tienhai. Oh. Cool. Lady Tienhai fills us in really quick on the pieces of the backstory we're missing. Short story shorter, basically once a year she took the form of a human. One time she fell in love with the prince, who eventually became the king we saw in the flashback. She permanently took her human form and eventually died a human death, which is what Old Iron felt before he attacked the first time, and why the king blamed himself. But Lady Tienhai explains that spirits don't die, they just take new forms. Does Old Iron not know this? So what did he feel? Is he just really mad that she's a flock of birds sometimes now? If Lady Tienhai can literally manifest like this on this island seemingly whenever she wants, like this isn't a special occasion right now, why didn't she step in either time Old Iron attacked? Also, side note, the prince/king-to-be is wearing the same style of hat as Sokka's detective hat, which is highly sick. So Tienhai says to Aang, she says to him, she sees human advancement as creation rather than domination, and as long as humans make an effort to do good and include the spirits where they can, there will always be a place for them. The flock of birds Tienhai is Takeoff, which of course represents freedom and hope. She even says it here, which is what she's clearly trying to instill in Aang here. Freedom from the pain Aang feels about what happened to his past and his people. Freedom from having to feel like he has to make the world stay the same to respect them and remember them. And the hope that if he does his best, those things will just come naturally. 3 months later, we're back on the island celebrating. A lot to like in this art. I like that the Dark One here is playing the cymbals, but with metal bending. Loban is doing a lot of smiling lately, so I guess he's a good guy now. And it even seems like he added some Air Nomad orange to his outfit, but probably just for the occasion. And even Vachir is back for some reason. I guess he was one of Loban's official bodyguards. Chillingly, Kachi is not here. The last thing we saw of him was him getting hit in the face with high-speed metal projectiles, so draw your own conclusions there. So, kites are flying, Sokka's selling fried meats, a loud parade, only kinda seems like the Yangchen Festival. Distinctly not the Yangchen Festival, actually. Aang's like, it kinda is, it's something new. Call it the Spirits Friendship Festival. We might need to workshop that name, Aang. We could probably come up with something a little catchier. But the point is, it's a new festival for a new world that still has the kites Aang flew with his people back in the day, respecting the same spirits they respected back then too. So that's the riff, the whole damn thing. Compared to the other two, I think they really nailed this comic. This is easily the best book they've done front to back. I feel like it really shines for not being so weighed down to the story from the show. They just told their own story and it works. They found some really good dilemmas to center the conflict around and didn't shy away from Aang and Toph having very staunch and differing views. Yes, there are silly moments, over the top silly, too much to feel right in Avatar sometimes even, but those are few and far between. Everyone seems very much in character the whole way through, and and there are no real additions to the world or magic that I can really point out as being too egregious. Top text forklift, bottom text forklift, or whatever, that's about it. I'm really glad they didn't retread the same conclusion of everyone just agreeing to chill out and talk, but instead it was Aang making an internal compromise with himself on his own views with a mindset that he can still feel good about. I think that's a wonderful way to grow a character. I think despite a lot of it being Toph-centered, I really think this was Aang's book, and it was handled really well. If this is what the comics are like going forward, fucking count me in. Patreon shoutouts if you want to see 2 brand new videos from me. You can support me on Patreon for just a few bucks. Link, as always, is in the description below the video. Biggest shoutouts of all go to my top patrons, Agent Rhino, who has been clocked as being more than half a second faster than his reflection. Danger Stranger, who crossbred a rhino with a lion somehow, and man, you do not want to try and break into that guy's house. Omega Fighter, who created both of the serums you can name off the top of your head, those being Truth and Super Soldier. Sean Martin, who single-handedly brokered a peace that prevented the third undersea civilization world war. Stephanie Riches, who, if she wears a Fitbit and she plugs a PlayStation controller into it, she can turn on cheats from GTA San Andreas, but for real. Thomas Lautenbach, who has been a concurrent gladiatorial champion at 3 separate coliseums and 11 taverns. Tiago Nascimento, who found a mysterious glowing egg, and if the voices coming from it are anything to go off of, that thing will be a powerful ally. Tis Just Lee, who defused a bomb that's bomb manual was in Swahili, and, you know, not a lot of crossover with English on that one. Varunda, who defeated Crocomunga, the 35-foot crocodile in single combat. And Whitrow, who meditated under a waterfall once and got lost in thought, but when they opened their eyes, they were mysteriously seated at the bank of the river on top of the waterfall. And of course, my god overanalyzers, Two Boots Are Beat, Andrew Watchett, Austin Gallup, Daniel Anderson, Dizzy Payne, Dominic Saint, Distant, Aaron Grace, It's Carton, Jackson, John Ajaka, Justin Fletchall, Mr. Freese, Nicholas Abbott, Peter Bayron, Phil, Pogger White, Reese, Rocket Mist, Ryan Maxwell, Samuel Vanderplatt, Super Snipper, Turp Bobs, and the Bear Face. Next up, something else, I bet. Probably.